Good day and welcome to episode number 10 of the Pin Podcast, where we talk about modern topics with a vintage flair. I wanted to say thank you all for reaching out to me and telling me that you're loving the episodes and the content that I'm bringing out to you. It means so much to me. And again, if you have any ideas you want to sponsor, be on the show, send me an email or a text at 1-833-4A-PinUp, an easy hotline for you to just get connected with me. It could be podcast related or anything pinup related. I'm here for you. What else do we have during this pandemic, right? But today I am bringing you I'm bringing you a woman that is incredible. She is Roshana Nofret. She is a world-renowned dance performer, instructor, and choreographer specializing in Middle Eastern and ethnic contemporary dance. And she's also an incredible friend and a loving, beautiful pinup here in South Florida. How are you, Roshana?
Hi, Jen. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. So, I'm trying to remember, how did we meet? We met at Pinups at the Zoo.
Yes.
Right?
Officially in person, yes.
Officially in person, because we were chatting back and forth online because you were so excited to come out. Yes. And for those of you who don't know Pinups at the Zoo, it's a national meetup that I started here in South Florida that has expanded actually internationally because we did Ireland last year. Wow. And this year, unfortunately, all the events have been postponed, but it was really a great way and a very cost-efficient way for people to go out to their local zoos and support their local community and just like hang out with other girls that love rockabilly, pinup, vintage, and just have a stroll in the zoo. It's really nice. And I got to meet you and other girls and Kelly.
Yeah.
And it was great.
It was really, really fun. That was such a blast. I know right before that, I was hoping to meet you at the Art Deco Festival. And I know we were both there, and we missed each other. I kept going up to different booths and people would tell me, "Oh, have you met the girl with the yellow hair? She has the pinup group." I'm like, I'm looking for her. But yes, we finally united at the zoo.
Yes, of all places, in the wild.
Right? Out in the wild. I love it.
So I wanna know about Middle Eastern dance. How did you get into it? And let's start off with, what is it? If you could give me your definition.
Middle Eastern dance. Okay, this is a pretty broad category of dance, which a lot of people, if they're not familiar, they wouldn't know it. Usually what I get is when I mention I do Middle Eastern dance, I get, "Oh, do you mean belly dance?" And belly dance, yes, it's part of it. But there's so much that's part of the category of dance, of Middle Eastern dance. We have folk dances, traditional dances from many different countries. In the Middle East, I say the Middle East to just kind of generalize and not give the longest description ever of everything that I do. But some of the countries also fall more into Central Asia and surrounding areas as well. So back to that, we have traditional dances, the folk dances you might see in a social setting, at a wedding, or different kinds of celebrations. And then we have the more theater style dances, which sometimes would be the folk dances taken and put in more of a theatrical setting, so more choreography, more costuming, maybe group synchronized dancing, which is not what you would see in the wild, you know. And so then from there, it'll just start going a little more progressive and experimental, and start adding ballet and different kinds of techniques to have more kind of classical dances, if you will, and contemporary and modern infusion. It just goes really far from there. But basically,
it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's a big rabbit hole, actually. And that's something that I didn't know when I started. I started just doing belly dance, and I started when I was 14. I formally started when I was 14 because I studied it, kind of dabbled in it on my own for about a year before that. And the interest came from a lot of different places. The first would be from my family, because while I am Cuban-American, I have a pretty diverse background ethnically. And I mean, I think almost everyone from Cuba does anyway. I was born in Miami, and my parents were the ones born in Cuba. And my grandmother, my mom's mom, would always, from when I was very little, always remind me that I'm part Lebanese. And I didn't know what that was as a kid. I'd say, yeah, cool, nice. And over the years, I started learning or figuring it out, realizing, and we didn't grow up with the culture. It was my further back in my family. It wasn't so immediate that I was able to grow up with the food and the dancing and the traditions and all that background that would come with that. So I was very curious as to what the music was like. I've always been a big fan of music, and the dancing kind of came as a result of that exploration into, what is Lebanese? what is Lebanon? What is Arab culture? And just the music kind of came along with it. During that time as well, there was a really popular soap opera going on. It was a Brazilian soap opera called El Clon, and that was huge.
Yes, it was I know really of it.
You know of it? Yeah, it was like belly dance mania from that. And so from there, it sort of really came into a spotlight as far as in mainstream culture. So it was a little bit easier to be exposed to it. And I became very curious about it. So I started dabbling on my own, which is not as easy back then as it is now. You just kind of
now you can just YouTube it.
Exactly. We didn't have YouTube. So I had to start kind of looking up where I could get a DVD or a VHS. I think my first, like a VHS. And
Blockbuster.
Oh my gosh. I don't think I searched Blockbuster, but I did come across some VHSs, and I practiced a little bit on my own. And during that time, because of El Clon, it became so it was everywhere. It was everywhere. So I think just one day I was watching a morning TV show with my mom, and this woman named Tamerlan Dalal was doing a segment on her studio and on belly dancing. And I was like, wow, okay, a place I can go to. But I was terrified. I was terrified to go. I was a really shy 13, almost 14-year-old. And my mom knew how interested I was in this, and she said, I'm going to sign you up for the classes. So, like, okay. We went to an open house, and it was so amazing, as a teen that probably prior to this was, even though I was a lover of art and creative things, I didn't really feel like I had a creative outlet or a place really to express myself. And walking in there, even though I was so terrified and so shy, it was amazing. It felt like home right away. And so I took this open house, and my mom went ahead and signed me up for a beginner's class, but I told her, I'm not going to do it unless you do it too. Oh. So
she did it.
She did it. She did it for me. And the rest is history.
Really? Now we have you today.
Now you have
now you're teaching.
Fast forward. Yes. Every time I think about it, still, it doesn't go away. Like the I guess, nerves of it never go away. That excitement, the good nerves.
That's because you're passionate about it. And then you just, that same feeling that you had walking in the door, I'm sure a lot of your students feel that way when they walk in or zoom in into one of your classes.
Yes. Oh my gosh, zoom in. I haven't seen someone walk into a class in months. Man, but yeah, it's so special, really. From there, I went on to study so many other styles of dance, and I really learned, like I'm explaining to you, that the difference between just calling it belly dance, and then there's Middle Eastern dance, which is the bigger sort of term that this falls into, alongside so many other dances, and you learn so much about the roots of the dance, just the diversity in the styles and so many different countries that you're representing as you're going through this. It's really something. Yeah, and I'm hooked.
And I love when people talk about their passion and you just hear it in their voice. It's coming straight, like it's coming out of you and it's radiating. And I feel the same thing with PinUp. There's a term PinUp, but then you have the goth PinUp, the traditional vintage, rockabilly,
it's
punkabilly,
exactly like that. Yes.
Same thing. And then you just can't, there's people, I feel like you and I would agree that we just don't love one thing. We just love a mix of stuff.
Absolutely.
Like, why not?
Yeah.
So then to transition to our next question, somebody online also asked this question. It was user at Cele Shadriel. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Shadriel, yes.
Shadriel. She said, when did you start your passion for vintage and pinup?
Oh my gosh, it's difficult to pin a date on it.
We don't need a date. Like maybe just that feeling or what you saw or something, or the first dress you bought.
It feels like my whole life, pretty much. My mom has always been into museums and period films and all that. So I've been exposed to a lot of history pretty much my whole life. So that's probably where I got my first start, is watching all these period films and becoming addicted to them and sort of like living in a fantasy of them in a way when I was younger. And where I really could say that it really started to, kick in was probably my early teens. I started watching a lot of classic films. So I was homeschooled for majority of high school. And I was already dancing at that point, and I got really intensely into it. I pretty much lived at the dance studio at that time, and just that and a couple of other things. I ended up homeschooled, and during that time, what would keep me a lot of company is watching Turner Classic Movies, and that would just transport me. That's when I really started really, really getting into it, and I'd start collecting jewelry. Dresses didn't come until a little bit later, but I started with jewelry and just clippings and photos, and just really absorbing the vintage culture. And from there, same things. Like from there came the pinup and came everything else.
It was like what is it called? An iceberg? No, there's an effect. A snowball effect.
A domino effect.
So then how do you incorporate your vintage lifestyle with your dancing? Is there a way that you fuse them together?
Yes. Some of them happen a little more naturally than others. What I mean by that is, for example, with Oriental dance, which is another name for belly dance, is actually the term I usually prefer to use. We have something that we call golden era belly dance or Oriental dance. And so what that is, for the most part, is, at least nowadays, is a sort of recreation, or sometimes just inspiration from dancers that were active during the time that we also consider, our vintage classic time, the golden era of Egyptian cinema. I believe is, and I'm no historian with this, but it's pretty much the 1930s into, say, probably into the 60s, maybe part of the 70s. So there's a lot of decades of style in there, yeah, and a lot of different dancers that were more prominent in one decade or the other, and so that would be a really natural way for me to incorporate vintage style into Middle Eastern dance, or at least into one category of it with Oriental dance, is to use the styles that were contemporary with maybe some of the music pieces or a particular dance, and just to incorporate the hairstyle and whatnot into the costuming, look up the costuming of the period, and it's more almost historical recreation. Excuse me. But a lot of dancers also take it and make it a more theatrical, kind of more personal, modern reinterpretation, inspired by that as well. So that's one area that I would use for this. What I like doing with that is I don't like, for myself, at least, because I do love to watch it in other dancers, I don't like to do too much of the recreation myself. It's what you and I have talked about a lot before. Yeah. I like to take something and take the influence of it, or the essence of it, or the history, the back history of it, and do something new and different with it. So I love to dance to the old music that is from this time, from whichever decade it may be, and do my little bit of research in that, what year or what, at least the decade, so I can kind of determine a style that I can add to this. And I don't necessarily like all the time to dress exactly like a dancer would in that time. I like to take a little bit of that love of the vintage fashion, and maybe even with a more modern type of dress, but have it, have that little bit of nostalgia factor to it. And definitely the hair and the makeup, and sort of make like, I don't want to say modern, because it's not completely modern, but a more contemporary or unique take on
a fresh,
like a fresh, different view, or my reinterpretation of what was done back then. And another thing that I like to do is when I do my more contemporary dances, depending on the type of music that I'm using, it doesn't matter whether I'm doing, for example, more the like golden era Oriental dance, or if I'm going more in my other specialty, which is Persian dance, specifically a lot of contemporary Persian dance. I sometimes have music that has that little bit of I call it the nostalgia factor. It has something in it that connects it to some sort of music of the past. Yeah. For the most part, I would say it's mixing it with Western music of the past.
So what do you teach in your classes?
What do I teach in my classes? I teach a lot of different things. I have to usually have different, a different class for each style. Mm-hmm. So
how many styles do you teach? Too many.
Many. Yeah, I can't put a number on it, but it's many. And just I usually, what I do is to not have it be very confusing for students, is I have a different class for each different style. I don't always have them all going on at the same time. So sometimes I'll just focus on a few, or a specialized course, just on a particular style. Of course, then there's also the more like intro classes, which those you don't really, for the most part, you don't really give them too much of a style just yet because you wanted to teach the basics. So yeah, but it's many. I can't put a number on it.
Oh, that's good to know, because usually if you go to a dance studio, you know, some it's just ballet, jazz, something else modern.
Modern or tap.
Oh, yes, I would love to learn tap.
Oh, tap is fun. I hear it's really hard.
I have the shoes. I got them at Goodwill. I just need to take the class.
Well, that's one step closer.
I'm close. I'm trying to convince my boyfriend to get tap shoes. That way we both could practice and drive our neighbors crazy. So I see how you incorporate your vintage, your love of vintage, but how do you incorporate your culture, like your Cuban background? Does it influence your dancing?
It absolutely does. And sometimes it's really fun and interesting to see how everything can come together. For example, going into the golden era Oriental dance style, there's a lot of pieces from this time, from this era, that incorporate actually a lot of Latin music of the time. And that's my other, I have such a soft spot for old Latin music like boleros and tango. So I love to find pieces that have that sort of an influence, whether it's within that style or within any of the other contemporary or otherwise different styles. I love to find pieces that have that little bit of something like a bolero, like I said, tango or rumba or something that has that Latin sound to it as well. Yes. Sazon.
Sazon.
So yeah, I love to incorporate that, and I do find a lot of pieces that use that, whether they're covers of old songs or whether they're just their own composition, either of the time or newer ones that are inspired by the time. And that is probably, for me, that's a really big signature in my dancing is incorporating that, and to a certain degree, movements as well, movements that make sense with combining them with the Middle Eastern dance.
And how do you feel? How does that community, since you've lived in it since you were so little, how does that community take to people that are not? I know you have some Middle Eastern in your family, but let's say somebody that well, but is it open to everyone, or is it considered
Absolutely. Is it considered? You mean like
cultural appropriation? If I wanted a belly dance.
Oh, okay. It depends on who you're talking to, I think, because I've experienced both ends of the spectrum, in both with Arab communities as well as with Iranian communities, which is the other group that I usually spend a lot of time with. And it's been really interesting. So I've been involved in a lot of different ways, some more personal and some more professional. And in both, I have found both people who feel like we have no business getting involved, or also something you hear a lot is, you might do it nice, but you can't do it like a native. I've heard that a lot, and I have a lot of respect for the natives, of course. I don't consider myself one. I think having just a small percentage of a background is not enough. And sometimes you do always feel a little bit like the outsider, to a certain degree. And I never do pretend to be any, ethnicity or background other than than my own, or my main one. We can say how I'm raised, or as I've been raised. But yes, there's a little bit of that from some people, not too happy that you're not of their background, and maybe you're making money off of something that is theirs, or getting fame or recognition for something that is not yours but theirs. And it's a very sticky subject. So I try to usually
you do it in your No, but you answered it correctly. You do your own flavor of it. You've never
I do my own flavor with all the respect, and I always try to study with natives. I have a lot of respect for them, a lot of admiration, and I teach natives as well. So that goes to show you that there are also people who like what you're doing, who are honored also by what you're doing because of how you're doing it. It's all about how you do it. It's all about how you present yourself, really.
Yeah, it happens in every. I feel like that same situation, you could just change the words around and it could happen anywhere. Like when Absolutely. I used to model, people would be like, "Why are you doing it? You're fat." Like it's in everything in this world. We all have our own flavor
in everything, and I think that applies across all cultures. Really well, yeah. But I have also a lot of people who are big fans. And really good friends.
I'm a fan.
A lot of them. Oh.
I can never make it to your 11 o'clock one day because I work, but...
Oh, that's fine. I'll have other classes at other times.
But I watch your Facebook videos, Instagram.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
very beautiful.
I have a lot of natives that are really sweet and really supportive, and I'm really, really appreciative of that. And
your mom.
Mom, yeah.
Sounds like she's incredible. She got you into vintage. She needs to come to one of the brunches one day.
Oh, I'm sure she will. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have to say I have a really lovely family that's really artistically inclined. My mom she was a piano teacher. She played the piano from the age of 4, I believe. So
do you play the piano?
No, I do not. She tried to teach me, and it wasn't for me, or I don't know, she didn't push enough.
Do you play an instrument?
I play a little bit of frame drums and hand drums, mostly. Yeah, it's a bit. Not professional at all, but enough to be able to incorporate it into my sort of musicality education for dance.
Nice. Yeah, you can do it for your students.
I have a brother who's an artist as well. He's an illustrator, and my dad is a huge fan of music. So I've always been surrounded by a lot of encouragement and curiosity towards the arts. I'm pretty lucky, and
that's amazing.
Yeah, the supportive group.
So I have a few questions from people.
All right.
From listeners. So some I can't pronounce, but we'll see. At Dial Pie, he's from Orlando, because I know him. He wants to know, when are you going to Orlando? I'm pretty sure this is like for the future.
Man, I wish I could tell you next weekend. But we're stuck for a little bit, but as soon as I'm able to, I will gladly go to
Orlando. And then I have Jessica 1-2. Is belly dancing for everyone? Like Absolutely. All shapes and sizes, I'm pretty sure she means.
Yes, definitely. It's for all shapes and sizes and ages and all backgrounds. Definitely. I have students from all over, specifically for belly dance, because for Persian dance, I have a lot of Iranian students. as well as all these other backgrounds. I have people from Latin America. I have people in China. I have people in Japan, people in all parts of Europe. I have all kinds of backgrounds of students locally as well. So everyone is welcome to try and give it a shot.
Mm-hmm. And do you have to wear two pieces?
No. I barely do myself. I used
that's true.
to.
Now that I think about it. I
rocked the trend for a while. And at some point, I just liked how it looked more with the belly covered. For myself speaking, I'm not judging anybody. I think, everyone looks lovely in their two pieces or their dresses, whatever they choose to wear. But I love the sensation of, I don't know, of just having that covered and feeling fabric there. I don't really know.
It's just a preference.
It's just a preference. It's not because I'm really conservative or it's bad to show or that you have to show it. You don't have to show it.
Yeah, I didn't even realize it until you mentioned it. Like, I don't know why
Name one time in the last year you've seen my belly button.
I haven't. I have a question from Arte Luna Miami. Uh-huh. How do you find your costumes?
Oof. A lot of them are custom made for me. So, yeah. So, really what I do is I find a lot of fabric and I hoard it. When it's the classical Persian costumes, yeah, those are made for me. I usually design them myself, and a seamstress will kind of pitch in and help and make most of the costume for me. My gowns, a lot of them are made by a designer in Argentina named Montserrat Saar. And she's amazing. Sometimes they're custom, specifically for me, something that I commission from her, or sometimes she just makes something and I don't know. She has this way of thinking about
reading your mind.
Something, yeah, and she makes it in like exactly the size that works for me, and it's exactly the style that I want. And some of those is like that black gown that I have a photo in front of the cityscape and balcony.
Oh.
That's hers, and so many others. And sometimes I go to other designers and seamstresses as well. And sometimes I get lucky and I find a costume that's already made, in which case it's usually a designer from a number of different countries. So, yeah, they're sourced from all over the place. And sometimes they do have vintage fabric or vintage buttons, vintage rhinestones, vintage flowers. I throw everything in there.
Because I love all the detail on your costumes. They're so pretty.
Yeah, there's always lots of detail, and when there isn't a lot of that embellishment, it's usually like a really nice fabric that'll flow really well for dancing.
Mm-hmm. Last question I have here is from Bernadette. And what is your favorite kind of dance? This is a hard one.
Yeah, that's a really difficult one. Goodness, because I could answer as an audience member, I could answer as a dancer. So
what do you see the audience loves more?
And the audience, well, I guess it depends on the audience. Usually when someone is really new, very, very new to Middle Eastern dance, the natural thing is to gravitate towards belly dancing. I guess it's still the most mainstream of the styles, and just something about the typical costuming and the music and the movement is usually what draws the eye. But for me, my favorite kind of dancing, I'm going to go ahead and instead of giving you a style because there's too many, I'm going to say something that can really, really touch my heart. And if it can make me cry, even better. I'm one of those people that loves to cry.
You want it to hit the soul.
Yes, absolutely. It's whatever dance is really coming out of someone's pores completely. That is my favorite kind of dancing. Intense.
And is there anything else you want to share with the pinned listeners about you, about anything?
Oh, goodness. There's so many things I could go on and on.
Save it for another podcast.
Yeah, of course. I hope you'll have me back.
Yes.
I just wanted to, I guess, just come on here and talk a little bit about what I do and how, even though it may be very different from what a lot of other people that are related to or as in love with this genre do, we're still very connected. And that's actually my overall message as an artist, is we are more connected than we think. And it's my way of exploring all the different ways that we are connected. So I just say, have an open mind always to exploring different kinds of art. You never know where in all of this huge ocean of just art and music and movement and culture, where you're going to find your next source of inspiration. You might be very surprised.
So true. And also, I want to tell everyone that if they're interested in learning more about you, or about your classes, or just like looking at your beautiful videos and costumes, they could find you on Instagram. Yes, I'll put it also in the description below. I'm going to tell you guys, and I'm also putting it below. It is Instagram is at Roshana_Nofret. And then on Facebook, it's Roshana Mid-Eastern Arts. And her website is roshanadance.com.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, correct.
I thank you so much for being on episode number 10. I'm really happy that we're on 10.
Wow.
So I'm excited.
Amazing. Congratulations on that. And thank you so much for having me.
Well, you're welcome. And then next week, I have a very special boutique coming on. If you guys follow me on Instagram or have known me for a while, because a lot of the girls on Pin South Florida that used to shop at Tatiana Boutique knows that I used to work there. And I only worked there part-time because I wanted like the ins in the store. And next week, they're going to be a guest here. So we have Tatiana Boutique next week. I have Crystal from Tatiana Boutique. She designs and helps the day-to-day operations at Tatiana. And so if you have any questions, let me know, because I'll be asking her next week. And yes, I'm so excited. And make sure to follow the Pin Podcast on Instagram also at the Pin Podcast Official. And my Instagram is PinUp Miami. Come say hi. And I will see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.